Good, okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 12 April 2021 Sandag Military Working Group. I begin meeting, I'd like to ask April, who's serving as our clerk today, to confirm one more time that we do have a quorum with voting members.
Yes, we do have a quorum.
Okay, good. I'd like to review the process for both the working group members as well as the members of the public who wish to speak under public comment. For working group members, when you would like to speak, please click on the raise hand icon in the Zoom control panel. You have control over your video and mute, so please turn on your camera when you'd like to speak, and I will call on you. April, if I miss somebody, if I'm not paying attention, please interrupt me and let me know that a working group member would like to speak. Okay, at this point, do I have any questions before I turn it over to April to go over a couple of more procedures? Any questions in? Okay, April, take it away.
Okay, as noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to emailed comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. To provide a live verbal comment during the meeting, please join the Zoom meeting either by phone or computer. At the time frame for public comments, members of the public are advised to raise your hand if you wish to provide the comments, and the feature can be found on the Zoom toolbar for those who are joining via computer or entering *9 for those joining via telephone. The chair will call on the members of the public by the name of those joining via computer and by the last 3 digits of your telephone number for those joining via telephone. All comments received prior to the close of the meeting will be made part of the meeting record. The instructions for providing live comments are also on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of Sandag's website at www.sandag.org. And I'll pass it back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, April. Okay, what I'd like to do is tradition. Okay, as tradition always holds, let's see who we've got on. Let's go around. I can see some faces, but I can't see. So let's go on with Cliff Maurer and Andy Hall and Rick Hunfield. Go that way. Introduce yourselves to the group, please.
I'm Rick Unifeld, a retired Marine Colonel and the Community Liaison Officer for the
Cliff,
Marine Corps Recruit Depot.
Hey, good morning. JJ Gamlin, Marine Corps Installations West.
Good morning, all. I'm Cliff Maurer. I am alternate for Blair King, City of Coronado.
Morning, everyone. I'm Andy Hall. I'm the city manager for the city of Imperial Beach. I'd like to also introduce our Chief Administrative Officer, Erica Cortez, who is with me this morning. So it's good to be back. It's been a while. It's nice to see you all.
Yeah. Welcome, Andy and Erica.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Brad Ralston, the city manager in National City.
Any other members of the working group?
Yeah, good morning. This is Kristen Driscoll, U.S. Coast Guard. I'm Chief of Emergency Management, sitting in for Captain Borelli.
Thanks, Commander.
Hey, good morning, Chairman. Steve Chung here, Navy Region Southwest.
Good morning, Rodrigo Carrasco with NTS.
Good to have you, Rodrigo. Okay, I think that covers it. Okay, we're on the part of the agenda now where we're on to public comment that's not on the agenda. So if any member of the public that's tuning in would like to speak to the working group for stuff that's not on the agenda, please raise your hand and let us know, and we'll give you 3 minutes of public comment. We don't see any public comment. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on then. We're going to go on to minutes. Approval of the minutes. I assume most of us have scanned at least the minutes. Do I have a motion from any working group member on approving the minutes?
Move to approve.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion about the minutes?
Chair Benelli, this is Andy Hall. April, do we have a quorum if I don't vote? I did not attend that meeting. But I did read them and I can vote if needed.
I believe we do.
In that case, I would abstain, Chair.
Okay. Okay, let's do it. I'll try to do this the easy way. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 There's one abstention. Is there any noes? Okay, for the purpose of the record, the minutes have been passed. Okay, do we have any comments right now from the clerk?
No
Okay,
comments at the
none,
moment.
okay. Moving on to, let's see, where are we? Okay, chair's report, under my chair's report. In general, as you know, the Biden-Harris administration has announced an infrastructure plan earlier this week called the American Jobs Plan. It aligns very closely with the transportation work that Sandag is currently doing. Just like the principles in President Biden's plan, Sandag is planning for tomorrow's mobility system, focusing on equity, climate, and building the economy. We see connections to many aspects of Sandag's work. This includes Sandag's priority projects, which include down along our international border, the State Route 11 Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, the Central Mobility Hub, the regional plan that they're currently working on. Hopefully by the end of this year, the opening and operation of the Mid-Coast Trolley, as well as the real critical work along the Lawson Rail Line to stabilize the Delmar Bluffs. For all these projects and more, it's imperative to get the support from both federal and state authorities. President Biden's American Jobs Plan could help ensure a long-term investment in some of our regions and nation's most significant projects nested right here in the San Diego region. The region alone, under what Sandag's working on, has 120 current projects ready to move forward in the next 18 months, and they come with a price tag of almost $2 billion. Sandag anticipates working with our congressional delegation to review the final details of this plan to make sure the region is ready to participate in whatever final version the United States Congress and the President signs off on. Switching gears here a little bit, our planning committee, which always reviews our work, the Sandag board and the planning committee approved our charter, the update to our charter. Essentially, this combines two Navy seats. They did this in early April, so there are now 13 members of the military working group. That's going to help us out a lot with a quorum. Just smooth things over. So we've updated the charter on who's members of the military working group. And you can always refer to the Sandag webpage for a refresher. An announcer from my city, Coronado, Cliff's sitting in for City Manager Blair King. I think a lot of you may know that Blair King has made the decision to leave the city of Coronado after about a 10 or 11 year stint. And he's taken a similar position, I think closer to family, up in Washington State on Bainbridge Island. He's going to take over the city manager there. He has served on our military working group since it was first established. And Blair's always a very sharp individual with very pointed comments, and I'm going to miss his participation in our military working group. Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is the Central Mobility Hub, the Navy Old Town Complex Revitalization Project. I'd like to turn this over to, it's an informational item, and I'd like to turn it over to Sandag staff. Sharon Humphreys will give us an update on where we're at with the Central Mobility Hub and the Old Town Complex. Sharon, you're up.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Benelli and members of the Military Working Group. I'm excited this morning to be able to provide you an update on the Central Mobility Hub project. As you know, the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan and for the Central Mobility Hub, Rachel Kennedy has brought the planning efforts to you. We are picking up those planning efforts and moving forward with environmental clearance and preliminary engineering. And I'd like to provide an update. Next slide, please. So the vision for the Central Mobility Hub is to improve public transportation access to the San Diego International Airport. We are one of the only major cities in the United States without a quick, convenient, direct connection to public transportation from the airport, and this project seeks to remedy that. We're also looking at improving traffic flow on the freeway and within the community, and enhancing connections for public transportation, for active transportation, for bicycles and pedestrians. And we're looking also to create a clean, safe, and inviting space for the community to gather. Next slide, please. So we've been busy since December of 2018, when the SANDAG board established the Airport Connectivity Subcommittee. The airport has also pledged $515 million toward airport-related public transportation projects. In September of 2019, SANDAG and the Navy signed an agreement to explore options for redevelopment, which created the opportunity to place the Central Mobility Hub as an option at Naval Base Point Loma Old Town Campus. And in September of 2019, SANDAG board approved the study.
No. It's they reshuffled the items on the agenda here. So the item I'm speaking to is now.
Steve, you're unmuted. Steve Chung, you're unmuted. Sorry, Sharon, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I was like, oh, whoops, am I not supposed to be going? No problem. Okay, so moving on, in January of 2020, SANDAG and the Navy signed an additional agreement to advance the Navy's Old Town Campus revitalization project. So also in February and March, the SANDAG and City of San Diego, the airport and the port approved a memorandum of understanding to advance airport connectivity concepts. And so we are meeting regularly with these stakeholders to make sure that we are coordinating efforts to address the serious congestion problems in the region. Next slide, please. So from March of 2020 to the present, as I mentioned, the comprehensive multimodal corridor planning effort has been underway. And we have also been looking at various concepts to advance and reduce congestion in the region. And in April of this year, we are planning on releasing a notice of preparation, which is required in conformance with the California Environmental Quality Act, to let the public know that we are considering a project in the region. And in the summer, we are planning to release a notice of intent, which is required to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act environmental clearance requirements, with Caltrans acting as the Federal Highway Administration lead, likely as the federal lead agency. Next slide, please. So the project alternatives that we are considering is the Central Mobility Hub at the Navy's Old Town Campus, and that will include transit connection to the airport and freeway and roadway improvements. The next option that we're considering is the Central Mobility Hub at the Intermodal Transit Center, which is shown as the star in blue here. And the Intermodal Transit Center is just south of Washington Street between the freeway and the rail. And also we are looking at another potential option, the trolley connection at Laurel Street. Actually, we're reconsidering that potential option because of the runway protection zone. And I will have to update this slide because we're looking at a potential connection that comes off of the rail line a little bit farther south. And so those are the 3 project alternatives that we're going to be advancing into environmental clearance and preliminary engineering. Next slide, please. We're missing a slide that basically just talks about our preliminary milestones. Well, it's back up. Preliminary milestones in the timeline. As I mentioned, we're going to be releasing the CEQA notice of preparation this month. And next month, we'll be holding a public scoping meeting. Again, in summer of 2021, we'll be releasing the NEPA notice of intent with technical studies to follow and preliminary engineering after that time. We're currently working with the consultant who has been contracted to prepare the draft environmental impact statement and draft environmental impact report to develop the schedule for preparing the draft documents and finalizing the documents. But you can anticipate that those will be coming up in the next couple of years. And we are also working ardently with our federal representatives to try to get some of the funding that's been allocated for transportation directed towards this very important regional project. With that, I'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Sharon, thank you for your report. Let me do this before I go to the working group members. I want to go to members of the public. Are there any members of the public who are listening in that would like to offer a comment or ask a question? And April, let me know if there are first.
I'm going to call on Tori B has a question.
Good morning. Thank you, April. And sorry, my daughter's iPad. So Nicole Burgess here. Thank you, Chair Bonelli. Always great to hear and listen to your opening remarks. Just a quick question for Sharon Humphreys. I was excited to jump up and hear Laurel being an alternative. I missed it. Was Santa Fe also an alternative or not?
For the Central Mobility Hub, no. Santa Fe is not. It is a historic building, and it is also constrained in terms of space. So it would be very difficult to have that act as a Central Mobility Hub.
I guess, yeah. So my only comment, thank you for just one last comment. Just as that grand, huge vision for a Grand Central Station, maybe it's better to look at these as, because that Navwar site is super valuable. And I think the land use and how we are resilient and use that space is super valuable for Sandag. And then looking at maybe a broader approach to more multiple smaller mobility hubs, but that are grounded in their own vision along that whole corridor. So thanks, Bonelli, for letting me comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you for participating, Nicole. Any other members of the public? Okay, I'm turning to working group members. Any comments or questions from working group members?
Chair Bonelli, this is Andy Hall from the City of Imperial Beach. Sharon, as we go along, I know we've said this before, but we just want to reiterate that there be some thought given to the last mile for the Naval Base Coronado, both in Imperial Beach and Coronado. This is an important connection to the airport, but we want to make sure that our people are actually connected. So that last mile from maybe the Palm Station would be very helpful, at least for the outlying field. So if you'll keep that in mind as part of the NEPA consideration, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, I've made a note here. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from working group members? Okay, well, people, I think I have a couple of questions, Sharon. As far as the NEPA process itself, is the Navy the lead agency on that?
So there are 2 projects at this location. One is the Navy's project, which is redevelopment of the Naval Base Point Loma Old Town campus site. And they are looking to develop a updated cybersecurity facility and also utilize the land to help support that process. So the Navy is going to be releasing their draft environmental impact statement in the near future. So for the project that I just presented on today, which is SANDAG's project for a central mobility hub and transit connection to the airport, the federal lead agency is likely to be Caltrans, acting under the jurisdiction of federal highways. And part of that is because we are anticipating that this project will include a connection to the I-5 freeway. It's also possible that the federal lead agency could be FTA, but right now, the most likely possibility is that it will be federal highways with Caltrans acting as the lead representative for the lead federal agency.
Okay, I follow you. Okay. And the question that always gets the hair up on back of Rick Honeyfield's neck is, as we go through the environmental review process and stuff, you have to go through by law a series of alternatives. One of them would be the no build alternative, but the other one would be if in the event over the next decade or two or next week, the MCR, the Department of Defense in its wisdom, and the United States Department of the Navy and Marine Corps decide not to have an MCRD, is that going to be looked at as an alternative?
We are not looking at MCRD as an alternative at this time, because we understand that that facility is going to be in place for some time. If that is an option, we would certainly be interested in hearing about it.
Okay.
More likely to move the airport.
Okay.
That's
Good.
what we heard. That's what we've heard from the MCRD. But it is a great piece of land, and it would be a great location, but it's also serving a very important purpose right now. So
the old general comment, it always goes back to drives, I think, constituents crazy when you dig up a road 3 times within the, in a several month span to do 3 different projects instead of coordinating them. I hate to get to the point where if locals here got to the point where they're going with plan A, whatever plan A turns out to be, and then for some reason, if MCRD would become available, it'll be interesting to how we deal with that process. Not that it might ever happen. God love my Marine Corps friends.
well, we try to be very nimble, and if opportunities present themselves at some point in the future, we will certainly be willing to discuss with our regional partners any opportunities for redevelopment in adjacent areas. But yes, we've certainly heard that MCRD is not open for business at this time.
Okay, good. All right, good. I'm sure that's music to Rick's ear. Any other comments or questions from working group members? Okay, hearing or seeing none. I want to go back one more time. Would there be any more public comments on this item? April, do you see any public comments? Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 6, which is 2021 priority updates. A good colleague of mine from years past, Elisa Arias, will provide this update on SANDAG's 5 priority projects. And Sharon Humphries, thank you for your time this morning and for your presentation. Elisa, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bonelli, and good morning to all. My name is Elisa Arias. I'm the Director of Integrated Transportation Planning at SANDAG. And as Gary mentioned, I'm going to provide you with the update on the SANDAG 5 priority projects and also our ongoing social equity efforts. Next slide, please. As you know, SANDAG works with partners throughout the region to implement a variety of projects and programs. And in 2019, we began a comprehensive organization assessment, and we had conversations with stakeholders, board members, and employees to identify several areas of improvement. And since then, we've been on a journey to become a more effective organization, become bolder in our thinking, invest in our future, and be more agile in how we work. The goal is to become a world-class organization equipped to serve the people of our region. An output of this strategic planning process was to identify the 5 regionally significant priority projects that will represent focused investments in 2022. You've heard from Sharon about one of the projects. You will also hear from Rachel and from Caltrans on another project. So I'll briefly touch upon each of them to give an idea of how all these projects align. Starting with the Del Mar Bluffs-Lausanne corridor, the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo corridor is the second busiest passenger and freight corridor in the nation. It's critical for goods movement and connecting people to where they need to go, and also for national security. To ensure continued operation of this corridor, SANDAG is working with NCTD to stabilize the Del Mar Bluffs. You may have heard that the bluffs suffered a collapse at the end of February, and since then, the SANDAG team has been working with NCTD on emergency repairs to the railway. Recent and upcoming closures will allow for our crews to continue to conduct critical repair and stabilization work through July. Long term, we must move the tracks inland, and we're in the middle of a study on the best options to do that. We've also convened the San Diego Regional Rail Corridor Executive Leadership Task Force, whose first meeting is going to be next Monday. This task force is being led by our chair of the board, Mayor Blake Spear, and it will be instrumental in moving this project forward. Moving on to the Mid-Coast Trolley, if you've driven recently along I-5 near UC San Diego, you've seen the progress that is being made on the Mid-Coast Trolley project. It's the largest infrastructure project in the history of our region, extending the UC San Diego Blue Line trolley service 11 miles. When this project is completed later in 2021, people will be able to ride a trolley from the border at San Isidro to the university community, connecting to medical centers, UC San Diego, and large employment centers. The major construction is planned to be completed this summer, and it will be followed by testing. And we are looking forward to celebrating the opening of this service later this year. Moving on to the Central Mobility Hub, you just heard from Sharon about the Navy Old Town Complex Revitalization Project, and Rachel will give you an update on the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. For decades, we've been exploring ways to improve regional connectivity to the airport, and with future traffic impacts that are expected on the roads adjacent to the airport, combined with insufficient transit access to the airport, this is a chief priority to identify a solution for a direct transit connection to the airport. We envision the solution to be the Central Mobility Hub, which will be a multimodal transportation center that will connect all regional public transit in addition to providing that direct connection to the airport. Moving on to the border, the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry and State Route 11 projects. This is a joint venture between SANDAG and Caltrans, and it's a collaboration with the state and federal partners on both sides of the border to create a third border crossing for our region. The new border crossing will enhance regional mobility and also fuel economic growth and binational trade. We recently worked with Caltrans and Imperial County Transportation Commission on a study to look at the economic and environmental impacts of the current delays at the border. And we found that in 2016, those border delays caused economic losses of about $3.4 billion to both countries, including more than 88,000 foregone jobs. The new border crossing will help reduce delays and prevent discontinued economic loss and environmental impacts. If you'd like to learn more about this project, you can take a virtual tour of the project site at sr11virtualtour.com. And you could see through this tour the recent construction progress and learn more about the project. And last but not least, if you can move to the next slide, Ashley, is the 2021 regional plan. And our team is in the process of developing the 2021 regional plan, and we provide frequent updates to our board and other policy committees. The bold new transportation vision for the 2021 regional plan focuses on addressing 3 key areas: traffic congestion, social equity, and also state and federal mandates. The plan reimagines the transportation system using a data-driven planning approach through the implementation of what we call the 5 big moves: complete corridors, transit leap, mobility hubs, flexible fleets, and the next operating system, or next OS. And these initiatives all intertwine, create a framework for a transformative vision for mobility in our region. As I mentioned, the 3 challenges we are looking to address are traffic congestion, social inequities, and meeting the state and federal mandates that require that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also improve air quality. The result is going to be a transportation system that is fast, fair, and clean. In August of 2020, we presented the vision to our board of directors, and since then, the vision has been shared with numerous community groups, virtual workshops, and small discussions in our virtual vision lab. This year, we've engaged the board in a series of discussions that are helping evolve the vision into the draft regional plan. The draft plan is anticipated to be released for public review in late May. The draft EIR is anticipated to be released in the summer, and we will be asking our board to consider adoption of the plan and to certify the EIR in late 2021. Next slide, please. Earlier, I mentioned that the strategic planning process at SANDAG is ongoing. And in addition to help us identify the 5 priority projects that I just described, it's also helping us identify initiatives to transform the way we work. And these initiatives include advancing equity and inclusion, enhancing our organizational culture, improving digital capabilities, becoming a data-driven organization, and also pursue funding sources to implement projects and programs in the region. Before I conclude my presentation, I'd like to spend a few moments talking about the initiative to advance equity and inclusion. And over the last several months, we worked with our employees, working group members, our board of directors to draft statement outlining our commitment to equity. The result is this commitment to equity that you see on the screen. And I'll let you read through the statement, but want to call your attention to the second paragraph where we talk about the equity action plan that we are developing. Next slide, please. As a first step, a regional social equity planning framework has been developed to guide how we're going to approach, incorporate, and prioritize social equity in everything we do, SANDAG plans, programs, and projects. And to develop this framework, we have partnered with community-based organizations from environmental justice communities, consider best practice research in equitable planning, and also supplemented that with data collection and analysis. And during this process, we've identified 5 interrelated actions that form the basis of the SANDAG Regional Social Equity Planning Framework. And you can see them here on this chart. To be successful, these 5 actions rely on continuous learning. We'll be forming collaborative partnerships and recognizing that community members know best how they experience and want to experience our region. Engagement, we mean elevating engagement with low income, people of color, people with disabilities, and those with limited English. We need to do this early and throughout our entire planning process through strategies that are respectful of each community's cultural context and their expertise in using the transportation system to ensure that what we learn translates into solutions. Data accountability relates to how we use data to drive and inform the planning process in conjunction with that community engagement. Measuring impact relates to measuring and understanding the benefits and trade-offs of our plans, programs, and projects to the communities they should serve by working closely with them to communicate and solicit feedback that informs that decision-making process. To prioritize investments, we need to base that on understanding that we gain from community priorities and also local, state, and federal goals and regulations, establish methodologies to prioritize investments in plans and programs. So we make sure that they benefit people with low incomes, people of color, people with disabilities, or those with limited English. Access to jobs, education, and healthcare are vital. Monitoring and evolving. This relates to conducting ongoing monitoring and reporting to evaluate how we're doing, and also using the outcomes to inform future plans, projects, and programs, and continue to learn from this process. This is the start of a conversation that will be ongoing, and we need to reflect on past practices and lessons learned. We really have an opportunity to make a sea change in how we approach planning to lift up those who need it the most, so everyone can fully participate in our region. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chair Bonelli, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Oh, you're on mute, Chair Bonelli.
You're right. Sorry. Thanks, Alicia. You covered a lot of ground. I always appreciate your insights and covered a lot of ground very succinctly. April, let me first go to the public to see if there's any public comment on this item. Do you see any? Okay, we see no public comment at this time. Working group members, questions from the working group members, questions or comments anybody may have. Okay, well, everybody's waiting. Okay, well, my particular event, Alicia, I really appreciate Sandag's efforts. You talk a lot about, I always remember back in the 60s when we were trying to put a, quote, man on the moon, and the astronauts always worried about, you know, get them up there to the moon, but they always said, let's get a man on the moon. They said, let's get a man on the moon and back. So what's interesting here is I just lost my trend of thought, what I was going to say. It's my age. If you look at the five big moves there that you outlined, three of them, here it is, goods movement. You always, now Sandag always talks about moving people and goods being a vital component. It's when you look at the trade we do with our partners in the Republic of Mexico, having that additional port of entry on the international border is critical to our economy. The Lausanne corridor, we've got to keep that open. I know the port alone moves over $1 billion worth of product north and south on the Lausanne corridor. So that's really important. So the other thing, try to keep in mind, folks, from my perspective, what Sandag's doing, Sandag over the years always talked about reducing traffic congestion. How I see this plan a little bit different. When we talked about reducing traffic congestion, it was always traffic congestion was going to get worse, but we're trying to reduce it. This time around, the rethinking, the re-innovation, and with the climate and the equity component, it's really a different way of looking at mobility. And I salute Sandag for trying to do it this way. It remains, I think staff's done a good job. I think they'll be able to bring to the board a plan that meets federal and state requirements and is the best future looking plan I've seen in probably 45 years of being associated with Sandag. Having said all that, politically, trying to get it moving forward, I think the board, there might be divides on the board, but the plan I think will get adopted and the EIR certified. This is just Gary Bonelli speaking. Eventually, we're going to have to get, they're going to have to go to the public to look at a local share of how they're going to pay for this plan. And that's going to be the real key. I think that's going to be the hardest push, and that won't happen till sometime till late next year, probably late of November of 2022 at the earliest. So that's the real pushing the boulder up the hill to try to get a local revenue source approved by voters. Okay, so that was my little spiel. Anybody else, comments or questions? Elisa, great to see you as always. Thank you for your time and expertise. Keep charging and continue success.
Thank you, Chair Bonelli. Thanks to all.
Okay. Okay, we're on to item number 7. Ms. Rachel Kennedy is going to talk to us on the Central Mobility Hub connections and comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all the members of the Military Working Group. As you may remember, at a previous meeting, I provided you with some information on our Central Mobility Hub and Connections Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan that Sandag staff is currently working on. And I wanted to provide an update today on some items that we're working on currently and that have happened since that last presentation. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Just briefly here, as I noted previously, Sandag is currently working on 5 corridor plans in different areas throughout the region, with the Central Mobility Hub and Connections Plan being shown in the dark blue area on the map. If we go to the next slide, we can see here in more detail the focus area for this corridor plan, which is shown in the dark blue, as well as the area of influence is how we refer to it, that's shown in the light blue. So with this corridor study, we are looking at all of the major transportation facilities within this area. So that includes I-5, I-8, our rail corridor, which the trolley, Amtrak, and Coaster utilize, a number of our local roadways within this area, as well as the direct transit connection to the airport that Sharon mentioned in her previous presentation. Next slide, please. So as I think everyone is aware, our study area has a number of challenges as it relates to transportation. We do have bus service that connects downtown to the San Diego International Airport, but we don't have direct regional transit access. Challenges with traffic congestion in our study areas, as many parts of the region experience. Challenges for bicyclists and pedestrians to access different destinations here. And while we do have, transit service and a variety of routes that come into this area, it doesn't always take people where they need to go. So a Central Mobility Hub is one of the ways that we believe we can better link different destinations through both in our study area and the region as a whole. Next slide. So this slide here was in Sharon's presentation as well, and both the corridor plan and the project work that Sharon and her team are undertaking are looking to provide that direct transit connection to the airport, improve connections for people who are biking, driving, using transit, pedestrians within the Central Mobility Hub, as well as to the surrounding communities. Bring together different transit lines within the Central Mobility Hub with the plan that Elisa just mentioned in her presentation. There are, would be potentially a number of different transit lines that could come together in this location and provide a really seamless and easy transfer experience so that people could get to destinations throughout our region and beyond with Amtrak. And also for it to be a really safe, clean, inviting place where people would enjoy being, give people a really positive user experience. Next slide, please. So here this map shows the potential locations for the Central Mobility Hub, and Sharon touched on this a bit in her presentation. But you can see here in the purple, the Navy Old Town campus, and we're exploring a Central Mobility Hub at that location in collaboration with the Navy. And then in light blue, you can see the Intermodal Transportation Center, which is located just south of Washington Street. So those are the 2 locations that we've been exploring within this corridor plan for the Central Mobility Hub. Next slide. So on March 11th, we had a virtual public workshop, and a few of you may have participated in it as well. In that workshop, we focused on providing some background information for the corridor plan and focused the presentation on the Central Mobility Hub concepts. As part of the corridor plan, we've been taking a look at how we bring together all the different transportation components for those Central Mobility Hubs at those 2 locations that were on the map. We had over 180 people attend the meeting, which was great. It was conducted both in English and Spanish, and you can see the recording of the meeting either in English and Spanish on our virtual engagement hub, and I'll have a slide a little later in the presentation that has the links to that. We had some interactive survey questions that we asked during the meeting, and we have an online comment form and mapping tool that are available on our virtual site as well. So if we go to the next slide, I'm just going to very briefly share a few of the slides that were part of the March 11th presentation with you. I'm not going to do the full walkthrough of all the details of each of the concepts, but if you are interested in seeing those, you can get the full presentation slide deck as well as actually watch the presentation on the webpage. As Sharon noted in her presentation, San Diego is one of the only major metropolitan areas with an international airport that doesn't provide for convenient and direct transit access to and from the airport to destinations in the region. And some of you may have traveled to other cities, either here in the US or internationally, where you were able to easily connect from the airport, either on a train or a bus or other transit vehicle that easily, quickly brought you to your hotel or your other destination. You could probably, grab a cup of coffee here, have a comfortable place to wait if you were maybe looking to take a longer distance train. And that's something that we're looking to create here with the Central Mobility Hub. The Central Mobility Hub would bring together a number of different transit and transportation elements. So it would incorporate Amtrak, Coaster, the trolley, rapid and local buses, flexible fleets, taxis, rideshare services, pickup and drop-off facilities, bikes, pedestrians, and a direct transit connection to the airport. Next slide. So when we were looking to develop the concepts, we looked at a number of different central mobility hubs in the United States and internationally. And one that we thought was a good match for San Diego was the Denver Union Station. So here you can see a few images from that. And not so much architecturally, but just from the way that center functions within Denver. They have Amtrak that stops there, light rail, buses, a number of the same type of transportation elements that we're looking to incorporate in the Central Mobility Hub. And they've done a really nice job there of having the facility integrate kind of seamlessly into the community. There are a number of successful restaurants and other establishments that people who may not even be looking to utilize the transit services would go and have lunch or spend time within some of the public spaces there. So that was one facility that we kind of kept in mind as we came up with the concepts. Next slide, please. So here, just at a very high level, we developed two concepts for Central Mobility Hub at the Navy Old Town campus, and then one concept for the Intermodal Transportation Center. So I'm not going to delve into all the details, but just wanted to show you a few images. So here is our concept number one. One of the big differences with this concept is that it includes the buses underground. You don't see them layered here in the facility, but they're sort of kind of underneath the white area that's towards the front. And we have an automated people mover that would connect to the airport more towards the front part of the site near Pacific Highway. On the next slide, you'll see concept number two. This one here has the buses at grade more towards the back of the site. And it has the automated people mover at the back towards the rail corridor. Here on the next slide, we have our Central Mobility Hub concept number three, which is located at the Intermodal Transit Center. We have all the same transit services that would be connected here. It has a little bit smaller of a footprint. We don't need to have as many bus bays here, given that not as many routes would stop here with the alignment versus the other one, which incorporates buses from the current Old Town station. And then if we go to the next slide, we have a number of different ways that you can interact with us. And I'd like to encourage everybody to take a look at our virtual engagement site if you haven't already. Here you can find information on the corridor plan. We have a fact sheet. You can see the presentations from the March 11th meeting and get a full walkthrough of all the concepts and the different transportation elements. We also have an online comment tool and an online engagement map. And if we go to the next slide, here you can see the interactive map. And we have been encouraging people, and I would like to encourage all of you and perhaps some of your coworkers or commands to take a look at our online engagement hub. Here we are looking to seek input from the community on areas of transportation challenge that you might be currently experiencing. And the tool is pretty easy to use. There's little icons up at the top, and we have a new instructional video that we'll be posting shortly that walks people through exactly how to add their comments to the map. But here you can take the little bubbles up at the top and you can go right into an individual intersection or a bus stop that you're aware of, or someplace you might like to see a bus stop, for example. And we've been getting a lot of really thoughtful and good comments from folks on different challenges they might have when biking through an area, driving through an area, someplace where they might like to see additional transit. I know we got a comment about bus service to the sub base in Point Loma. So our next stage with the corridor plan is that we're going to be taking a look at transportation solution strategies, is how they're referred to within the corridor planning document. And all of these comments that folks are submitting are going to be help in informing that process. So would encourage you all to take a look at that. If we go to the next slide, here we can see our high-level schedule for the corridor plan. So we did have that first public workshop in March. Now we are taking some of the comments that we received on the Center Mobility Hub concepts, and we'll be making some refinements to those. And then those will be handed to Sharon and her team to kind of go through the additional processes as part of the environmental document preparation. We're going to be moving our focus now to developing multimodal connections to the concepts at both locations. We're anticipating having a community roundtable with our planning groups and other community leaders later this spring, as well as a second public workshop later this spring, where we'll be focusing on those transportation connections. We're anticipating having our draft CMCP, or preparing it at least, in May, and then likely having the final document later this summer. And then the last slide that we have just has some information on contacts and ways that you can connect on the project. So with that, I'll turn it back to Chair Bonelli, and thanks for the opportunity to share this information.
Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate the information and trying to connect the dots and all the regional work Sandex trying to do. April, let's go to, first of all, before we get to the working committee members, any members of the public who would like to speak or comment or ask questions about this? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to the working group members. Any questions or comments from the working group members?
Chair Bonelli, this is Andy Hall from the City of Imperial Beach. Two comments. I'll repeat my comment about the last mile and some of the outlying communities like Imperial Beach getting to the light rail, maybe at Palm Avenue. But one thing I would ask is, in the middle of our housing crisis, has there been any thought of maybe considering some sort of a mixed use project where there might be some housing associated with this? Because I'm sure that's going to be some comments that are made just giving the housing crisis that we're having.
Sure. Within the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan, we're focused more specifically on transportation, but we're also focused on providing connections, and the City of San Diego is an active participant in our corridor study, and we'll be helping to inform the discussions regarding land use within the corridor plan. For the Central Mobility Hub project itself, as Sharon mentioned, the U.S. Navy is also taking a look at the revitalization of the site and developing a concept for the updated cybersecurity facilities. They do own that full site, and there could be, potential opportunities for mixed use development that could support their facilities. So that's something that they could consider potentially with the site. Sandig itself is focused just on the Central Mobility Hub component, but we are well aware of the housing challenges within the region and are looking for opportunities to collaborate with, our local jurisdictions and others on opportunities for increasing housing near to transit.
Captain Franklin, you have a question or a comment?
I just wanted to add in, sir. I know I'm not normally a speaker here. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of weigh in. And just from the Navy's perspective, I have been participating in a lot of these, so I do have somewhat an idea of what the big Navy is thinking. And right now, there's 5 different alternatives being proposed. And just to kind of, I think I might have spoken briefly about these before. One of which is recapitalization, where the Navy essentially goes it alone and does not revitalize that old OTC, Old Town Campus area at all. And they spend millions of dollars to give NAVWAR the cyber warfare facility that it needs, as mentioned earlier in the brief. But 4 of the 5 options are looking at with and without a central mobility hub, and with and without, high and low density, whether it's commercial or residential development. So Big Navy is looking at all the different options for that OTC area right now. And that's all part of the environmental impact statement. And they're looking at everything from, the birds, bees, trees, the environment, the smog, the traffic, everything. They're looking at all possible aspects of what is the overall environmental impact of this revitalization project. And then the Navy is going to make a decision. I think it's kind of highlighted here earlier, that the record of decision is supposed to be out later this year. So once that environmental impact statement is released from the Navy here in the next couple of months, there will be a 60-day public comment or public scoping period where we're looking for feedback from the public, from the general population. And did we cover all of our bases? Did we take into account all the possible environmental impacts or not? And then the Navy is going to make a decision later this year as to the way it's going to go. And it may or may not include the Central Mobility Hub. It may or may not include residential. But I know the Navy is very invested in this project. I'm very excited about it. Navy's excited about it, and still considering all options. And I can tell you that the Navy's not leaning one way or the other right now, but they are looking at it. Does that help?
Yes, Captain, I appreciate the update and laying that out for us. Thank you so much. Dave St. Jack, where are you these days coming from?
Hi, Chair Benelli. How are you? It's Dave Zajac. I'm up here at New Building 1, up in the area resident engineer office with Steve Chung. So good morning.
Okay.
Hey, and my question is in regards to the Central Mobility Hub and the area of influence south of the city of San Diego, and actually, which is part of Barrio Logan and the 10th Street Marine Terminal for the port. And I just wanted to just ask the question to the group, because I noticed that, or basically my question is there a specific reason why that's included in the Central Mobility Hub portion of the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan versus the South Bay to Sorrento leg? And I also noted today that the line that's drawn is directly related to the census block group for Barrio Logan. But I just wanted to have a dialogue on that and ask that specific question, because I think it has more alignment with the Barrio Logan and the South Bay to Sorrento Central Mobility Hub. Over.
Yes, so that area is being considered with the South Bay to Sorrento study area, and both Jennifer, who's the project manager for that study, and myself have been participating in some of the more recent meetings that Caltrans has been having about the corridor. We have sort of our light blue area, which is our area of influence. Our main focus for the corridor study is on the darker blue area, which encompasses downtown. But as you noted, we also did have to work with our census block groups and tracks and being able to establish our study areas so that we can be taking a look at data that's available within those geographies. But that is an area that is being examined with the South Bay to Sorrento group, and we're both, keeping apprised of that project as it's, either within or adjacent to both of the corridors.
Thank you, Rachel. As Chair
David.
Benelli knows, thank you, Rachel. And as Chair Benelli knows, in the military, it's the boundary lines that need all the coordination or extra coordination. So I just wanted to ask that question to the group and then have the group edified. And I know you and Jennifer are coordinating, but thank you for clarifying that. Over. And thank you, Chair Benelli.
Appreciate the question and comment, Dave. Good to have you on board. Other questions or comments from working group members? Sharing my bias here too is adding another layer of complexity, picking sort of up on what City Manager Andy Hall has said too, is as part of the Port's master plan update, we're considering a much more robust spider web, if you will, of ferries on the bay and water taxis. And hopefully, eventually we can coordinate, the region can coordinate with the folks over at North Island, with the 40,000 commuters going over to North Island. If we can get a connection, it'd be great to somehow work out a link, a water link, at least between the central mobility area by the airport and North Island. Wait, I've got another question here. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Nicole Burgess, you have your hand raised. Fire away, Nicole.
Well, thank you, Gary Benelli, and really appreciate Sandag staff. So I don't want to underestimate that. They are doing amazing work with the very constrained areas of the region, and I really appreciate all the work. I just kind of want to highlight on some of those comments from Andy Hall. Last mile, maybe it's last 2-3 miles, and I think of Franklin from Point Loma, getting our men and women from the central mobility hub to our bases that are in this entire corridor region, even Coronado, like you say, Benelli, from the ferries, how are we going to get them to that last mile of the Grand Mobility Station for those men and folks that are coming from outside of the area that really are impacting the disadvantaged communities and those communities of concern? How do we relieve them from getting in the cars to that central mobility station and out Rosecrans to Point Loma and out to MCRD and to Coronado and even IB, right? So yes, you are right, to the border. So just making sure that those military bases are definitely part of this big vision and plan. So thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, wrapping up, any other comments or questions from working group members? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to item 8, which is the San Diego Region Military Installation Resiliency Project. To get us through this and to get the money that we need, I've got a quartet of planners, April De Jesus, Sarah Pierce, Rachel Cortez, and Gia Balash. So take it away, April.
Thank you, Chair Benelli. And as you guys know, we've been coming with updates on the awarded San Diego Military Installation Resilience Project to the Military Working Group. We have been working very closely with our counterparts at the U.S. Navy and the Office of Local Defense Community Corporation. And Margaret Myers is here today, and I just wanted to take the time to introduce her and allow her to say a few words about the program and our partnership so far.
Yes, thank you, April, and thank you, Chair Vanelli. This is Margaret Myers. As April said, we are the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. It's a mouthful. Previously OEA, Office of Economic Adjustment. Congress just recently gave us a new name. So I know we've worked in your region for many years. I'm excited to be the project manager for this effort, learning more about what's happening. And as you've all discussed, the impacts of climate change, they make the assets vulnerable both on and off the base. And so our grant is addressing that military installation resilience, examining what can threaten the safety and security of everyone the installation serves, as well as the surrounding community, and where is that nexus between the two efforts. And so it's amazing the work that you're currently doing in the region. And it's great that we can provide this grant for you to do that connection piece with the military installation, making sure that it's resilient, its operations and missions are sustained through man-made and natural threats, including climate change and transportation issues. So we have this phase 1 grant, and I think April, your team will be speaking to that, but I'm here for any questions along the way, and just glad to be part of the team and the amazing work that you're all doing in the region. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Myers. Thanks for coming on board. May I ask, are you physically located in the San Diego region?
I am not, no. So hopefully I'll get there once the pandemic subsides. Would be great to actually be down there in the region.
Okay, well, we look forward to working with you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
April?
Thank you, Margaret. And Steve, do you want to say a few words before I continue with the presentation?
Yeah, no, I'll keep it nice and short, April. Thank you, April, for a quick soundbite, and Margaret, always a big thanks from our Navy friends here. Now, the key item I wanted to go ahead and share here, and I was waiting for this comment until some of the prior presentations concluded. As I think the working group and those on the line from the public we're hearing, there are a lot of key initiatives that are underway that has many moving parts, no pun intended. But that being said, this grant initiative that we're embarking on with the help of OEA or OLCC, that new acronym always throws me off. Here is something that I think everyone on the military team and those outside the military are firmly aware. This initiative pursuing the installation resilience for this region aligns with the recent President's executive order on tackling climate change, but also a echoing support from our Secretary of Defense on DoD's commitment to tackling the climate crisis. The innovative approach here, thanks to our SANDAG friends and our agency partners, is we're exploring the methods on how resilience to our installations, for ingress, egress to our installation, and how that dovetails in with many of these initiatives that are currently underway. So I think with that, the key message I wanted to share with not only our working group colleagues, but also those agency partners, is all these efforts that I think are being presented today are clearly have a nexus to one another. This military installation resilience grant effort is a key component to ensure our readiness posture moving forward remains intact. So back to you, April. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Margaret. Ashley, we can go ahead into the next slide. So just as a reminder, we have been working very closely with our Navy partners and our OLDCC project manager. And then we've also been in partnership with Caltrans and the city of San Diego as part of this process. We have team leads Rachel Cortez, Sarah Pierce, and Gia Balash, who will be speaking later today. Actually, Anna Lowe will be speaking for Sarah Pierce today. And then we also have a consultant team, HNTB, to support this effort. Next slide. Just a reminder, the main grant goals for this project is to assess some considerations for resiliency as to inform the Central Mobility Hub and South Bay to Sereno CMCPs, And then also develop a framework for data sharing between SANDAG and the Navy, and support mission readiness in our regional planning efforts. Next slide. This is a project focus area mainly around the Bay, focusing on access to Navy bases San Diego, Point Loma, and Coronado. Next slide. And I'm going to hand it over to Rachel Cortez to provide an update on the data sharing framework efforts.
Thanks, April. You can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So since the last time we visited the military working group to update you on the grant progress, we've continued to concentrate on the data sharing framework and setting up a recurring structure for the data sharing between the Navy and SANDAG. And up until this point, we've been working on documentation of the data that are currently used, and also working on outlining the benefits to SANDAG, the Navy, and also the region of those data and the products that result from acquiring those data. So we've also made great strides in determining the departments that will be fulfilling the data requests and putting all of that information together so it can be accessed when data requests are made. We did develop a draft framework of a draft data sharing framework, and we'll be finalizing that in the coming weeks. The intention is that the framework and a data sharing template will be agnostic to the type and manner of data being requested, so that we can utilize it, either party could utilize it, and we could use it to request data regardless of the type of data or who's making and fulfilling the request. So yeah, that's all. So lastly, we're going to work on all of those products and deliver them to HNTB to include that in the final report that they complete at the end of this fiscal year. So that's all. That's my item.
Thank you, Rachel. And we can go ahead into the next slide with Anna Lowe giving us the update on the resilience planning efforts.
Hey, April, before we get too far down, can you go back a few slides to show the map of San Diego Bay and the focus area? Okay, this is covering my 6 areas. You know, we're talking about resilience, and in my opinion, one of the potentially the most impacted area as far as coastal resilience is the city of Imperial Beach and the outlying field. So I realize there's only a certain amount of resources and stuff I have. I don't know what the size of the grant is, but it seems like we're really turning a blind eye, if you excuse that expression, to the city of Imperial Beach and the Navy's outlying field. Do we know why that was not included?
Originally, the focus area was around the Central Mobility Hub CMCP, and now that the boundaries of the CMCPs have been revised, we will be informing the South Bay to Sereno CMCP, which includes that project area.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Anna Lowe, as April had mentioned, and I'm pitch hitting today for Sarah. So save all the hard questions for her. You know, I'll just kind of go through the motions here. Just kidding. But again, thank you very much for having us here this morning. And really, next slide, please. Wanted to highlight the resilience focus of this grant effort. And so what we've got here on the slides are the 4 steps that we will be working through this effort. And we're going to be analyzing how climate impacts like coastal storms, sea level rise, erosion, and tsunami may impact the transportation facilities that are critical to base access and mission readiness for the Navy. We're working with our counterparts at other local jurisdictions, as well as the port and the airport, to develop adaptation recommendations for these transportation facilities. And the intent is to leverage existing analyses and plans wherever possible. Next slide, please. As I just mentioned, and just as a quick refresher, these are the climate impacts that we will be studying through this process. Next slide, please. And these are the transportation facilities outlined here on this slide, broken down by each of the naval bases that they serve. So really trying to provide kind of a comprehensive look at a variety of different types and of access points. Next slide, please. So I say we, really not me. Sarah has been very, very busy over the last number of months since meeting with the military working group. Since that time last month, completed a peer review process for this project. So taking some time and the opportunity to connect with other professionals that really kind of work in this space and in climate adaptation and on projects familiar to the region. And really wanted to take the time to vet the data and the models and the assumptions really that we are going to be using for this project. So just making sure that we're kind of all moving in the same general direction and folks are in agreement there. And then towards the end of last month, our consulting team completed the development of some draft vulnerability profiles for each of those facilities that were highlighted on the slide previously. And these profiles are intended to provide a really easy kind of to understand way of what the effects might be from those climate stressors that we highlighted, and then focusing on what those are in conjunction with our partners and thinking about those potential recommendations. So now moving forward, and I realize this says April, May, I mean, this month and next month, really, we will be coordinating with staff at local jurisdictions to develop, again, those adaptation recommendations for those facilities, and have also been discussing kind of the best ways to collaborate and coordinate between all of our various agencies and how to really think about moving these projects forward in the future. So kind of, you know, from concept to fruition and collectively trying to figure out how best to do that. So that's what we'll be doing the next couple of months. And again, by we, I mean Sarah and her team, but yeah, so I will leave it there for now and answer questions later if there are any.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you. And then I'll be going over the current outreach efforts. Next slide, Ashley. So we have been continuing our meetings with the Navy CPLOs, and then we also have several presentations scheduled with the community planning groups and local leadership. We currently have identified 15 community planning groups that we will be providing updates and presentations in collaboration with the Navy CPLOs. And we are in the process of developing surveys to gather information on travel patterns for the Navy personnel and their families. We'll be working closely with the CPLOs to engage over social media and other communication sources. Next slide. And then just a reminder, this is our project timeline. We should be wrapping up the recommendations and stakeholder engagement in next month, and then finalizing the report for submittal in June of this year. And we've been working closely with our Navy counterparts in OLDCC to identify potential phase 2 application that would have a more focused approach for the adaptation recommendations that we've identified in this phase 1, focusing on addressing sea level rise and storm surge on SR 75, Harbor Drive, Pacific Highway, implementing the data sharing framework that we developed, and incorporating that data into our regional planning tools. Next slide. And then Chair Bonelli, I'll hand it back to you if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you, April. Again, let me first go to members of the public. Do any members speak to this item? Questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, I've got Council Member Marv Hines from the City of Corona. Marv, take it away. Thanks for participating.
Thank you, Chair Bonelli. I hope you can hear me okay. This is exciting work. I think this is important.
Can hear you.
Sure that we have the Navy closely collaborating with our community. And I heard great comments about working with the Airport Authority, Caltrans, and the City of San Diego. However, I'm a little concerned because the City of Coronado is right in the middle of this. As the chair mentioned, the City of Imperial Beach controls a lot of the area around the outlying landing field, and the City of National City has a lot of impact on 32nd Street. I didn't hear about the collaboration with those cities, and I'm a little concerned that we seem to be reaching conclusions without dealing with the jurisdictions that actually are in the midst of this. I'd appreciate it if somebody reassures me that there's a lot of outreach going on there because I haven't been hearing about it myself. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. And just to let you know, we have been engaging with those local jurisdictions. We've been leveraging a lot of the CMCP meetings, and there are representatives from each of those jurisdictions that have been actively participating in this project. And if you'd like to speak offline, we could include you in that engagement as well.
Thank you.
Chair Benelli, this
Thanks,
is
Councilman Heights, for participating.
Yeah, Chair Benelli, this is Andy Hall from the City of Imperial Beach, and I need to start with saying that April and I have already had the discussion that her favorite Sandag city is the City of Imperial Beach, so we can let her off the hook for that. But yeah, I think that there are some important points being made. One is that the South Bay to Sorrento study is really about transportation. It doesn't have a lot to do with resiliency and sea level rise and some of the things that we're talking about in this grant. I think it's really important that we recognize that resiliency is very, very regional, and you can't draw a line in the sand at the Coronado Cays and say, you know, as long as we deal with it in this location, it won't have, you know, we've addressed our issues. So a couple of things. I would agree. There's been some comments made that the national or the outlying field is right by the national estuary, international estuary, and every time we get king tides, that's completely full of water. Not to mention the erosion of the landing field from the mismanagement of the Tijuana River Valley. But to go a step further, and is that I don't know that we can talk about the long-term resiliency of Naval Base Coronado without addressing the transboundary flows of pollution and everything else that's coming across the border. The reality is every time we have those king tides, the impact on the training and everything that's happening at NOLF as well as the coastal campus have to be addressed in this study, or we're not really looking at resiliency and the long-term effects and the long-term ability of our readiness of Naval Base Coronado. I think it has been largely ignored in this study, and it's a critical element with sea level rise and environmental issues especially for Naval Base Coronado. So again, not being critical of the work. In fact, there's been a lot of great work going on, but I think that there's a big hole missing if we're talking about true resiliency and long-term readiness of Naval Base Coronado. So thank you, Chair.
Duly noted, Mr. City Manager. All right. Other comments from working group members or questions?
Oh, can we respond to that, Chair Benelli?
I'm sorry, I missed it, April. Say it again.
Oh, I'd like to give Anna a chance to respond to Andy's comment. Is that okay, or?
Please do. Please do.
Thank
Yes.
you. And again, you know, you've got me here. The brilliant mind is really Sarah's, but I know that Sarah is very engaged with staff from all over, you know, the region that abut the coast, as well as others, of course, too. And I know that she has been having a number of conversations, not only with city staff, but really, you know, with the project team, trying to consider how all of these aspects will fit together, both now and then looking forward into the future. And I think one of the really great things that we can provide as it relates to kind of consistency across both, you know, the CMCPs and this project in particular is that Sarah is actually serving as the subject matter expert for climate resilience on not only the South Bay to Sorrento CMCP, but also for the Central Mobility Hub. So it's really, you know, the intent there is to really offer some consistency and ensure that those concepts and those considerations are thoroughly considered. And Sarah also manages our shoreline preservation working group as well. So the intent there, like I said, was really Sarah's got that mind and those really great relationships. For example, Chris Helmer at the City of IB, you know, there's a strong relationship there. So really just trying to ensure that staff have their fingers in the right places so that we can ensure that all of those pieces are coming together in a consistent fashion. But most assuredly, I will be sharing with Sarah as well these comments so that we can make sure that we integrate them more, at least elevate those conversations within this discussion as well.
Thank you for the response. Okay. Tate Galloway, you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to echo those comments made regarding Imperial Beach. I think that certainly is important for, as it relates to the city of San Diego, we certainly share transportation access between Interstate 5 and the Navy outlying field. So I think that is a potential opportunity if that could be considered either as part of this effort or as a future effort. I think that soundly makes sense. Also want to thank staff for their work within the areas affected within the city of San Diego. And then also to, I want to reach out to April to see if perhaps she or staff could also make a presentation to my team regarding community planning. So we're more up to speed as to what was going on with this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Tate. And staff will definitely accommodate that request.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this item?
Mark Balmer.
Hey, good morning. So I just wanted to make a comment that when Lucian Niemeyer was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for installations and also in his role with the Department of Defense for installations, he spoke quite a bit about resilience. And in fact, he came to San Diego a couple of times and spoke on the topic. But he in those remarks included things like water security, communications dependability, and energy security and dependability as all being factors of resilience of our installations. So it's more than just sea level rise. And he also several times offered to elected officials in our area and offered a partnership in the planning. So it's not just the military needs to plan, it's this partnership of addressing how our region deals with the matters of resiliency. Thanks.
Thanks, Admiral. Always appreciate the participation of the San Diego Military Advisory Council.
Yeah, thank you.
Anna Shepard.
Good morning, Chair Benelli and members of the Military Working Group. I'm with Naval Base Coronado and just wanted to echo City of IAB and City of San Diego comments and assure that I'm tracking and coordinating with SANDAG staff and looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? April, do you see any? Okay, I think that concludes that item. Look forward to the results this summer. On to our last substantive item here. Number 8 is the Vesta Street Bridge and Harbor Drive 2.0. Commander Driscoll, this will affect our senior service, the United States Coast Guard, besides a whole bunch of other jurisdictions too. Okay, let's see. First up, who's this? I don't know who's going to be presenting this.
It's actually
somebody
Donaldo
from
Martinez
Caltrans.
from Caltrans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Hi.
Sorry.
Thank you. And also with me is Mario Orso. We couldn't get Jacqueline. She had some things to take care of today, but Mario, my director, is joining us. So Mario, would you like to kick off the presentation?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Benelli, and thanks, Donaldo, and hi to everybody. This has been one of the most rewarding meetings that I've attended. And I would say because I learn a lot, and sometimes what we all are thinking here at this meeting today, we could say we're connecting the dots. We have talked about planning efforts like the corridor plans, and we've talked about environmental documents like Central Mobility Hub. We've talked about resiliency studies that feed into both those planning and environmental documents. And today, we're here also to talk to you about an effort that we're embarking, which is a project that's been on the books since 2006. That was a planning study that the Port of San Diego did to improve the mobility at the working waterfront, and then was taken to a next level through the Trade Corridor Improvement Fund programs some years ago. So today, you know, Caltrans has funded the environmental document for the improvements of Harbor, 32nd, Wabash, and SR 15 in Maine. And a big component is the Vesta Street Bridge that joins the dry side with the wet side of Navy Bay, San Diego, and therefore reducing the traffic conflicts at the main entrance and at Harbor and Wabash and 32nd. But it's an effort that Caltrans is embarking on, moving this project forward, like all the projects, through the environmental phase, so we can all partner together to fund the next phases, which will be the design and the construction, the realization of this project. So that's where the department takes the lead. Again, with a clear focus on being multimodal, considering the resiliency and also all the other planning efforts that are going on to connect the dots. So I'm going to pass it on to Donaldo, and thank you for having us here.
Good to see you, Mario. Thank you for participating. Donaldo, over to you.
Thank you, Mario. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just a quick overview. If you guys were familiar with the project, one of the major components is the Vesta Street Bridge, which is still in yellow over at Vesta Street, which, like Mario mentioned, it will connect the dry side with the wet side of the bays. The main purpose of the bridge is to provide for an interconnectivity for any naval-based activities. We believe that having the traffic just be able to go from one side of the base to the other one would reduce some of the congestions on the adjacent streets by just taking the traffic within the base to the base itself. Another major component that we're throwing in here, if you could see some little antenna kind of like icons. We're planning to install technology to facilitate the move of traffic, and in particular of commercial traffic, into the state highway system. Originally, or in previous studies, we had some connectors connecting Harbor Drive directly to 15, right? But the connectors, not only were they very expensive, it also required a lot of environmental mitigation because we're going over several bodies of water. Now we believe with the emergent technologies, we can get the same level of efficiency if we can use this new technologies and be able to move traffic through the intersections and get them onto the highway system. Along with the project, we'll also be doing some operational improvements, mainly paving, detection, and on the off-ramp of I-15 over to Main Street, we would be widening the ramp to facilitate for 2 lanes coming out of I-15 onto Main Street. Next slide, please. So, like I said, one of the biggest features, it's the Vesta Street Bridge, and some of the challenges that we have with the Vesta Street, and that we're going to be working towards getting them resolved and making this possible, is the fact that this bridge will have to cross Harbor Drive on the west, BNSF railroad tracks, MTS trolley, and then over the bridge we'll have some high voltage power lines. So it's a complex structure, but nevertheless we have the spaces to maneuver the bridge between all of those constraints. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, one of the things that we're going to be doing along with the environmental study is to do a concept of operations. And the concept of operations is mainly to facilitate or move forward the Harbor Drive 2.0 project. Right, we will not be doing the environmental clearance for Harbor Drive 2.0, but we will be doing the concept of operations. Now, the concept of operations, it's a document that will bring in ideas, will bring in technologies, and will document how is Harbor Drive 2.0 possible? What can we do? What technologies can we implement to make that a reality? So that's why it's called a concept of operations. How will Harbor Drive conceptually operate? Can we go to the next slide, please? Project opportunities. So there is a lot of efforts within a lot of communities, within Sandiag, the city of San Diego, the port, the base, the city of National City. But one of the major opportunities that we have at this location of 32nd and Harbor Drive is the fact that we almost have, or we have the basis of a multimodal, if you want to call it mini hub. All of the components are there. So we have bus stops, we have the trolley stations, we have the Bayshore Bikeway going along there. And basically all we need is just a little bit of more connectivity to make, I guess, to make it more attractive for pedestrians and cyclists. And this, just that intersection, it's a great opportunity. And so if we can incorporate it into the project, if we can incorporate ideas on how to provide that interconnectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists, we're not throwing that off. We're open to suggestions, we're open to ideas. And in fact, we're reaching out to all of the jurisdictions to brief us of any efforts that they're doing. And we want to make sure that we don't throw anything out, that we don't go blindly on our environmental document without taking into account other possibilities that may benefit the area. Next slide, please. So project challenges, the environmental clearance, the NEPA and CEQA, definitely the multi-agency coordination. So we do have a lot of agencies that are impacted with the project. We want to coordinate with everyone. We're reaching out to everyone and we're keeping everyone informed. And we want to know what they're doing. Facility access, right? This is not only for the base, but we need to access MTS right away. We need to access the railroad right away for studies, for any environmental studies in terms of hazardous materials, soil, how stable the soil is for the foundation of the bridges. And so that right now we're looking at it as a potential challenge. Physical constraints is just the limited space overall. It seems that Harbor Drive, it's a really tight corridor with not a lot of right-of-way, not a lot of room to widen. And one of the things that we do want to make sure we incorporate is to make it a multimodal transportation. We want to make sure that we don't preclude anything, that we want to be inclusive, and we want to keep an open mind while we're doing all of these studies. Next slide, please. Our project schedule. So we have started the PANED, the project approval and environmental document. And I think that next month we'll be sending out the notice of intent. And we're actively working with the Navy. We're actively working with the communities so we can make this possible. So we're looking at a date of finishing the document of about December of 22. Now it's like Mario said, it's important, right, that we get environmental clearance because that lines the project up and gives us the opportunity to seek funds, to seek grants, any infra grants from the federal government, any TCEP funds from the local or the state government for us to move the project forward, right? Whether it's a fund for the design or funds for the construction, right? So now the design starting on January 23rd and going for 2 years, finishing on January 25th of 2025. And then construction, again, it's a little bit over over a 2-year period from February 2025 to February 2027. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the next steps that we have lined up, right? Caltrans will be taking the lead on the environmental clearance, and the Navy will be a cooperating agency and also a reviewing agency. Most of the other jurisdictions will be reviewing the documents for us. The notice of intent is expected by mid-May or next month. And pretty soon we're going to start some focus group meetings, right? And the focus groups are going to be for environmental, traffic, and the concept of operations. Next slide, please. And with that, I yield back to Mr. Bonelli.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez and Mario. Appreciate the overview. Let me go to the public. First up, let me see, Nicole Burgess.
Thank you, Chair Bonelli, and thank you, Donaldo. That was a wonderful staff presentation of what is being expected. And just to start off, I have been involved with Sandags and their big visions and emerging technologies, and really that was the last presentation at the board meeting last Friday. And you know, these technologies of disruptive technology is really going to hopefully transform the way we move in San Diego, and using, I believe you call it concept of operations, smart technology. It's going to actually be safer for all of us. And so, Donaldo, I appreciate you discussing the need for multimodal and bringing up that 32nd Street, as well as, you know, open to that big picture, that big vision. And I really, really want this. Yeah, I look forward to future collaboration and your outreach. As you mentioned, that Vesta Bridge is a huge complex structure to get over Harbor Drive, and something that if it's really concerned for vehicle traffic, that's a little concerning. As I work with the Chollas Creek Coalition, looking at Chollas Creek, and David Zajac as well has also been involved as the city of San Diego, that connection at Chollas Creek and Main Street and how we're going to get over to the bases and the Bay Shore Bikeway is critical. And so if it's 32nd Street, Vesta Bridge, big, beautiful vision for that corridor. And I look forward to future collaboration. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. Any other members of the public would like to comment or questions about this project?
Mark Ballmer. Oh, Mark, did you have a comment?
Sorry, I didn't realize I had to unmute. Sorry. Thank you for the presentation. A couple quick comments on Vesta Street Bridge. I hope we're getting close to the point that we can call that a shovel-ready project. We've been talking about it for about more than 20 years that I'm aware of. So it's important that it get to be shovel-ready because with the infrastructure bill forthcoming and the possibility of Congress now allowing earmarks, funding for that bridge could appear here very quickly. And if we get funding and then have to turn it back because we're not ready, would be a shame. So we should be ready. The other thing I would ask is that we push to pursue ways that, and I'm not sure whether this is a Caltrans solution, but that we find ways to move military people inside the base so that they have a desire to either use transportation like the trolley and then can get a bus to take them on the base the rest of the way, or if they drive and park on the dry side, that there's transportation there on the base, so that there is this solution for the final mile as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. Captain Franklin.
Oh, can I respond a little bit on that one, or I'll let Captain go first, then I'll respond to Mark a little bit, some adding comments. Sorry, Captain.
Oh, no, don't apologize there, Mario. It's a great question and it's a tough problem. There's no easy solution. We have done the rent-a-bike option before pre-COVID, and that worked out pretty well, getting people to the front gate here at Subbase to and from. We also encourage people to, to ride share. We do also have Uber and Lyft options that, if people can get to the front gate, but if they're screened and they're vetted to come on to the military installations, then those Uber and Lyft drivers can actually come on installation. But unfortunately, as far as some sort of a shuttle bus to get people to and from the front gate, there's really just not a lot of funding or appetite for that sort of thing in the military. We're continuing to look at it. It's a topic of conversation now that we're kind of getting out of COVID and people are coming back to work more. And so it's definitely something that we're working through. And I'm talking to my public affairs officer in Ciplo and all of my team to consider all options. There's really nothing that's not on the table right now. But as far as like a military funded shuttle or something like that, there's really nothing in the budget for that right now. But I do appreciate the question and the concern. It's a valid concern there, Admiral, and definitely look forward to cracking that nut with the team here. Over.
Okay.
To add to the point Admiral and Captain brought up, definitely our goal was to fund this project to get it to shovel ready or closer to shovel ready. We did understand that that's a leadership role that Caltrans takes on bringing everybody together, as well as other regional agencies. And so that's why we did that. We are funding it out of the state share, the environmental document to get this project shovel ready and to be able to compete for all those great grants that are coming our way, hopefully. So that's very important. And also to generate the conversation Captain and Admiral brought up, right? Once we start creating those connectivities inside base to base, also that generates the discussion, right? Of even that last mile or the interbase connectivity and transportation. So those are good things, right? Those are discussions we needed to bring up. And by just beginning this project, that begins that conversation on funding, on internal mobility, and all that good stuff. So we're achieving what we're trying to achieve here. And finally, the structure, we just signed an MOU with the port, Caltrans and SANDAG, where we are partnering, we're grabbing each other's ideas and trying to move it forward. And that's what my corridor does. My corridor, the South Bay and South County and Trade Corridor, grabs all the planning documents and tries to take a project to reality. And it's a long journey, but that's how we start. We start with scoping the project, doing the concept of operations, funding the environmental, and then taking it to the last mile on the design and construction.
Thank you, Mario. Ted Galloway.
Thank you, Chair. Do you anticipate with the limited right-of-way any concerns about the column placement affecting the existing Bayshore Bikeway or any future aspects of that?
Donaldo?
Yeah, so currently we have what we call an advanced plan study, right? And that's what I showed on the screen. But right now, so we're at the perfect timing, and the document will be made available to all of the agencies, in particularly the Navy, for them to review and to make sure that the bridge is going to meet their needs or future needs. If we need to make it wider, we'll need to make it wider. So we're also looking at all of the constraints. So we're looking for any things that may have changed, any requirement change. And at our last meeting, that was a topic that was brought up, right? And we did have our structured representatives at the meetings. And so this is kind of the perfect timing because we're going to incorporate everyone's needs and projects. And so if we need to widen or lengthen a span of a section of the bridge, we will do that to make sure that we don't preclude the Bayshore Bikeway or any future plans that Harbor Drive 2.0 is bringing online.
Thank you, Donaldo. Other questions or comments from committee members, from working group members, excuse me?
Chair
My
Benelli?
overall Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Chair Benelli, thank you for the comment. This is Dave Zajac, former CIPLO at Navy Base San Diego and presently intergovernmental liaison over at Navy Region Southwest with Steve Chung. I just want to share with the group just the transformative impact that this Vesta Bridge and improvements will provide, not only for the base and the Navy, but for the state, for the local economy, and critically for the local communities. So this will be a catalyst project, even though it primarily will be on the Navy base, just like Caltrans and the port had mentioned. It will pave the way, so to speak, excuse the pun, for Harbor Drive 2.0. But what's critical to this is that this project will provide that critical last mile, first and last mile connections for the Navy. It'll reduce greenhouse gases, and it'll offer us an opportunity, excuse me, I'm talking with my mask here, to actually be innovative, just much like Donaldo and Mario had mentioned. And we're looking forward to that. And then to Nicole's point is, we want to increase, this bridge is supposed to provide us that critical active transportation link where 35,000 sailors can go back and forth using it via walking or biking or neighborhood electric vehicles, thereby increasing military readiness by their physical fitness standards, right? But then also reducing the congestion caused by right now hopping on Harbor Drive and basically having traffic delays. One final note, what this bridge will allow us to do is capitalize on the Walk a Mile, Bike 3 Mile campaign at Navy Base San Diego. And as the previous San Diego iCommute survey noted, the base currently has 3 times the typical number of bicyclists commuting to work, 3% versus the county's 1%. This would allow us to get to 10%, which are the national exemplars of the college towns like Davis and Ithaca, New York. So I just end with that, is that this is a truly monumental project. And I'd just like to thank the cooperation by all parties, and I look forward to working with all of you. Dave Zajac, over.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for your comments. Other comments or questions? Okay, let me try to foot stomp this too from the port's perspective and from my personal perspective. You're right, Vesta Street Bridge has been talked about for a long time. It's one of those critical links in our overall network. And when you look at Harbor Drive 2.0, when I look at through my regional lens, not only moving people from Imperial Beach, South San Diego, go around to Chula Vista National City, up back and forth, north and south. When you look at the port's plans, the port's going to try to quadruple the amount of product that it puts through the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal in the next 10 years. In the next 10 years, they're going to double the amount of cars from 450,000 to almost 1 million going through the National City Marine Terminal. We're building a 1,600 room hotel and convention center about half the size of the downtown San Diego Convention Center. And a lot of people will be flying in to the Rodriguez Airfield using the Cross Border Expressway. So that one slideshow on the concept of operation showing all modes from walking and bicycle to rail, to commuter rail, to highway, to truck movement. That the example of Harbor Drive, I think, is so well suited because it fits into Homeland Security via Coast Guard, the Department of Defense via the Navy, multi-jurisdictional cities and special regionalized agencies. It just moves a lot of folks and a lot of goods. So I think it's an excellent example that we as a region need to continue to push to make sure we have the best mobility possible in that corridor, not only for goods movement and people, but for our defense industry. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and unless there's any other comments on this particular item, April, do you see any? No, okay. We're on to almost the adjournment here. Okay, any other comments for the good of the order from working group members? Okay, hearing none. Thank you for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. Our next scheduled meeting is Monday, the 10th of May. However, depending on how the agenda and the flow of work goes, we might push that a month. But I thank everybody for their participation. Thank you, staff from Caltrans. Thank you, staff from Sandag, for connecting a lot of the dots for us. I think, as Steve Chung would say, this is why we have these meetings. We all know we all have pieces of the picture, but under the military working group, a lot of it comes together. So take care, everybody. Stay healthy. If you haven't get vaccinated, get vaccinated. That's a direct order. Take care.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sure.